Okay, we can start. We'll get our meeting started. Members of the public are encouraged to participate in meetings by, one, accessing the webcast at www.cityofclovis.com/agendas, two, providing written comments at the same website, three, participating by phone, or four, coming to the City Council meeting here at our chambers in person. And I'll call the meeting to order, and the flag salute will be led by Councilmember Whalen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Ashbeck?
Here.
Councilmember Bessinger?
Here.
Councilmember Mwanuzwa?
Here.
Councilmember Whalen?
Here.
And Mayor Flores.
I'm here. Public comments. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on any matter within the City Council's jurisdiction that is not listed on the agenda. In order for everyone to be heard, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, or 10 minutes per topic. Anyone wishing to be placed on the agenda for a specific topic should contact the City Manager's office and submit correspondence at least 10 days before the desired date of appearance. Is there anyone here at the chambers wanting to make a public comment on an item not on the agenda? Paul? Huh?
Council, thank you, Paul Hinkle. If I could ask for maybe a couple minutes of silence from Harry Armstrong, who passed away today in 2018. Thank you, Harry, for all your work. I'd like to ask the council if they could have someone look into the intersection of Sierra and Peach. It's a four-way stop. Sierra is used as a shortcut between Clovis Avenue and Willow to bypass Herndon. People are constantly running that stop sign. Now, some of it could be the fault of the intersection going east and west on Sierra. Going west, the stop sign is kind of behind a telephone pole. Coming east, limbs from a fruit tree in the yard on the corner blocks the sign until you get close to it. Friday, there was an accident there. There's been many accidents. This one was so bad, a car rear-ended a car that was stopped, rear-ended it and drove it at least 150, 200 feet. If her kids had been in the back seat, they would not be with us today. That's how bad the accident was. Her back door was up against the driver's seat. So if we could, there was talk about putting the flashing stoplights in and stop signs in. Anyway, if you guys could have someone look into that, I would sure appreciate it because it's getting worse and worse. You can go park there or stand on, I've stood on a corner within an hour, 7 cars have run those stop signs. They'll pull up there, they don't see a car and they just turn or they just go through it. So if we could have someone give that an evaluation. We were real lucky Friday that someone did not get seriously hurt. The lady was hurt very bad and the gentleman that ran into the back of her wasn't doing well also. Good. Thank you.
Thank you both for bringing that to our attention. I think Mike will address that. Anyone else here wishing to comment on something not on the agenda? Anyone on the web?
No.
Okay. ordinances and resolutions. With respect to the approval of resolutions and ordinances, the reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of the complete resolution or ordinance, and unless there is a request by a council member that the resolution or ordinance be read in full, further reading of the resolution or ordinance shall be deemed waived by unanimous consent of the council. Consent calendar. Items considered routine in nature are to be placed upon the consent calendar. They will all be considered and voted upon in one vote as one item unless a council member requests individual consideration. Council members' vote in favor of the consent calendar is considered and recorded as separate affirmative votes in favor of each action item. Motions in favor of adoption and consent calendar are deemed to include a motion to waive the reading of the ordinance or resolution on the consent calendar. For adoption of ordinances, only those that have received a unanimous vote upon introduction are considered consent items. I've been asked to pull item number 3, administration approval of 2023-2 street closure request and approval resolution declaring certain events at Old Town special events and setting precise boundaries for those Old Town special events. Is there any other items the council wishes to pull? No? How about the public? Anyone here wishing to pull any other item other than 3, because we're already pulling that? No? How about the web?
None.
Okay, with the exception of 3, I would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion for the consent calendar with the exception of item number 3.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion passes with 5 aye votes. And we'll move on to listen or hear item number 3. As stated earlier, approval of 2022 street closure requests and approvals, resolution declaring certain events as Old Town special events and setting precise boundaries for those Old Town special events. And I see Sean as our staff member.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. As you know, staff requests street closure simultaneously for all of the routine events that happen through the calendar year. We do that at one time to allow for proper planning. A resolution is required by ordinance 00-02 is adopted in 2000, declaring certain events as Old Town special events and the setting of precise boundaries. Requests for street closures are in the package that you all have.
Any questions from the council to Sean Miller, our business development man?
Yeah, Sean, the reason I asked for this item to be pulled is I received a call from a downtown merchant who was concerned about one of the events, a car show, and additional parking that was going to be closed off, which he felt could affect the availability of parking for people who want to go to his business. Have we worked very closely with Boot on this, and can you elaborate on any of what's occurred with this?
Of course, the car show has existed for about approximately 5 years. It was started by the business organization of Old Town. It was held in April until I guess it was 2020 when no events were happening. I'm looking for, yep, okay, I have confirmation. It was 2020. There was no car show held at all. 2021, because of some staffing issues at the business organization of Old Town, they were unable to hold the car show. They partnered with the Fresno Hot Rod Association. Anthony Granada, who's with the organization, is here, and he could answer questions that are directly related to their organization. At any rate, they partnered with Hot Rod Coalition to run the car show. They had a 2-year agreement to operate the car show. Last year was the first year. It was done in May of last year. The request is to hold it again in May of this year.
Thank you. Was there, I heard through another party that there was an unsanctioned car event downtown where people park their toys that they have. You know, God bless them, I can't afford that. And that caused a problem downtown. Could that be part of the angst here?
You know, I don't know. I am familiar with the event that you're referring to, I believe. And there was, it was let's call it a car show that didn't have street closure. And some of the issues were minor, some of them were, well, it depends on who you talk to. It's very relative, but that may have caused some of the angst, and that event is no longer happening.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions, Jose.
Questions?
Thanks.
Karen?
I also got a call, potentially the same merchant, not sure, don't know. But I think just to push on that a little bit farther, if I could, Drew, I think and I don't know, our friends from Boot are here, maybe you could help us during public comment, but it sounds like there was a comment about it, this would remove some opposition, so I don't know how much opposition there is, but I think it seemed like the combination of the Saturday closure and the parking lot closure. I think it was sort of that combination. Now, maybe that's a common combination with these events in Old Town, but I think could you just talk a little bit more about those two things, and then, Boot, maybe you can weigh in during public comment. I think that's the combination that this merchant was particularly concerned about. And Sundays, of course, would be better for both, probably, but the event is on Saturday. I get that. So can you just talk a bit more about the parking and the street combo?
Sure. If I understand this correctly, tonight was the first I've heard about the parking lot, and I believe that we are referring to parking lot number 1, which is the parking lot behind Bobby Salazar's. That parking lot was part of the request for closure, but it is not needed, and it was, quite frankly, it was included purely as boilerplate, and it wasn't needed then, and it's not needed now. I have been informed.
So should we decide to approve this 2022 calendar for that particular item on May 21st, we could scratch out parking lot number 1 as part of the request?
I'm seeing nods everywhere, yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. That probably helps some. Is that, okay. All right. I just wanted to go a little farther on that. Thank you. And I guess we should probably just take a really quick pass on if there's any other boilerplate language that doesn't quite apply. Don't know.
More questions for Sean?
Sean, when the parking lots are closed, it does have to be signified, but can they still request parking lot closure in the future? All these items where it'll be part of whatever the process the staff will go through. Potentially, should they expect it to be bigger than normal or less?
They can. Honestly, there's only 2 events that, as far as I know, there's only 2 events that really need closure of parking lot number 1. It's Clovis Fest and Big Hat Days, and the reason is because you can't get into the parking lot at all. 5th Street is closed and 4th Street is closed, so there's just no possible way you can get in there. Parking lots do not, the closure of parking lots do not require a council direction. It can be done at the staff level. Staff is hesitant to, follow through with the request for closure of any of the parking lots for obvious reasons. I can't think of a time when we have closed, when staff has decided that it would be a good idea to close parking lot number 1. The only parking lot that I could think of that they have closed for an event that wasn't either Clovis Fest or Big Hat Days is the one by the Elks Lodge.
And with regards to the event, some of these aren't sponsored by Boot, but Boot approves all of them, I'm assuming, because it kind of goes, because it's Old Town?
No,
Is that, no?
no,
Okay.
Boot is, Boot doesn't have, the authority to approve or disapprove of any of the, events.
But the one Boot,
I'm sorry, yes.
then that's the only ones. And the other ones, they just come to staff or to the city, and as long as they're in this calendar, they have just as much authority as anyone else per our policy here. Depending on what it is, yeah, depending on whatever item it is. So they don't have, no, they don't have to go to Boot in order to be added to this calendar.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So they can just come straight to you and say, I want to do this the next time it comes around, I want to be part of the approval.
That's right. And
Okay.
then, as part of the regular process, Boot is involved with the Tourism Advisory Committee, as is the Chamber of Commerce, and, the Rodeo Association, the school district, and, we meet and discuss all of the requests for street closure on a monthly basis.
And in the future, is there a way to sort of quantify the economic benefits of some of these at all, so that way, you know, we are seeing, okay, our joint collaboration with the chamber, with these organizations, look at the economic benefits that we have gotten in return?
Yeah, staff regularly provides reports on the economic impact of any event that is happening at Clovis.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
Sean, so sometimes we have spontaneous gatherings, and it takes up parking. So if any given day the greater Fresno County Sewing Circle ladies come and park throughout Clovis, is there anything we can do about it? They get on Facebook and they all decide that we're going to show up in Clovis from noon to 5, or 5 to 9 for that matter, on a particular Saturday, and show their wares in the back seats of their, you know, sedans. Can we do anything about it?
I don't know the answer to that. I think that,
We'll ask God.
well, I was just going to say that PD has managed, not quite a sewing group, but has managed, you know, short walks between, say, a church and a restaurant, and they've stepped in to provide public safety, make sure that that's...
I was giving an extreme hypothetical.
Sure.
Go ahead, Scott.
I think to the extent they're just parking in public parking spots, then no, we can't, unless they're timed or whatever, we can't just say, hey, you can't park in a public parking spot. But if they're selling things out of their trunk and they're impeding traffic, obviously we've got things that we can do to restrict that. But
short of that, they're not just disturbing anything, they're just parked.
Correct.
They're gathered as the Greater Fresno County Sewing Circle group.
correct.
And they're showing their double knit stuff in the back seat of their sedans. We can't do anything about it.
No, I'm assuming they haven't requested a street closure to be
They
part of
haven't
that or
requested
anything.
anything.
Yeah.
They haven't gone through any official channel.
Jose, I think that the problem, as I understood it, was people were parking their cars and then coning off spaces around them.
So the minute they do something to obstruct and maybe park illegally instead of parking in the proper manner as the vehicle code specifies, now there's enforcement action that can be taken.
Absolutely. If they're legally parked in public parking spots, that's fine. But if they do try to restrict with cones or block other traffic, then yes, they'd have a problem.
Then we use existing either ordinances or California
Correct.
laws of traffic that apply.
Correct.
Like backing in the wrong way, that's a vehicle code violation.
That would be a violation, yes.
Okay. Any questions? Questions from the public? Or comments? Time for your comments or?
I'm sorry. Oh, there you go. My name's Bert Liberta. I'm with Luna Pizzeria Italian Restaurant. And my concern is, we already deal with a lot of street closures in downtown. And if I'm not mistaken, that car show that you guys are talking about, it's always been on Sunday, because I've been working down there on Sunday and have noticed people down there. It's been the last couple of years, which is fine. Sunday's fine. But I deal with over 20 street closures on Friday nights already. The hardship for my customers and the other businesses that are in downtown Clovis, that's my concern. And the parking lots. Parking is the key to everything. If you don't have parking, people are not going to come. There's other restaurants to go to. There's other places to go see. I think we should look at this a little bit more. I think there's other avenues that we can put this car show at in downtown, not in downtown. There's other areas like the mall, the rodeo grounds. There's even areas back over here, and this area back over here, that you can do car shows. But the one car show he was talking about, that the guys were backing in and they were taking stalls, that was terrible. And the guys are out there ramming their motors up and driving around and stuff. And a lot of my customers got irritated. So, yeah, it's a hardship for everybody. Not for everybody, but for me. I mean, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I am concerned for the businesses of downtown Clovis. And I always feel like, how come they always got to take downtown Clovis to close the streets? They don't close anywhere else. You know, that's my concern. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment on this item?
Bert, I have a question. Taking the parking lot number 1 out of this equation this year, does that alleviate some of your angst on this? I mean, the whole issue, the larger issue.
Basically, you're going to leave that parking lot open, and all the people that are part of that event are just going to park there. It's got to walk. It's the whole structure of the street closure.
But to be fair, it does offset, if people going there park there, it offsets the parking in back of, over near Clovis Cole and those that were within walking distance, so. No, I understand. And I've talked to people. Sure. And I've talked to people who've told me, you know, I would go to Cup of Joy, but I can't find any parking. And I said, you know, if you park behind the shelves, yeah, I don't want to cross Clovis Avenue. And I said, well, but you do it in San Francisco or San Luis Obispo. Yeah, but I don't want to do that. And so it kind of takes, for me, it takes away the excuse when there is available spaces and it's not that far.
My whole thing is, parking lots are great. It's just the street closure.
Sure.
That irritates my customers a lot. Like I said, I deal with over 20 already. And I can't do it with those. That's a lot of my business now with COVID. Everything. My business is to those that went from 50% to 90% to those. We can't get around the back alley. And I have issues sometimes with the police and they're between breaks me and stuff like that. They'll come around the back, come in with a call for their food in the back and stuff. And I try to keep them on the floor. Everybody goes to the side street. No. I know it's tough for everybody, but it's not just me. You know? It's just frustrating. I'm frustrated because I've been there the longest in downtown. I'm still fighting this.
Right.
And I feel like I shouldn't be fighting this, right? That's just how I feel. And, I mean, I already deal with, like I said, 20 Friday nights. That's a big chunk. And then you got your 2 Saturdays, big out day and Clovis. It's fine. I deal with those all-day deals. So my business is done at nighttime. You can't come in.
I'm glad that even with a tough year and a half, you're still swinging, and so we're happy you're still up, and thank you for letting us know your concern. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Joey?
Sure.
I was going to say there are other restaurants, but there's only one Luna's. So like that, you know, there's only one of Luna's. So people will come to you. Do we have any kind of parking where, like, do you have 2 spots out in front that people could just that say reserved for Luna's pickup? Do you have anything?
I don't. I've never had it, you know.
But I mean, in this environment, like you see that everywhere.
Well, those are my spots, those go on
What about Quilter's Paradise? Is that chained off completely?
The park,
Is that,
I told my boss, and I've talked to Bob many times about rating it, okay, and he kind of sucks at me, and I've asked him many times, I'll leave it for you, and he, you know, it's, I mean, it's hard, because I've never, been there the longest, we don't have parking in that whole area,
sure.
you know, and I mean, it is what it is.
I was just thinking about, I mean, so many restaurants during COVID have a sign out in front that says, this is for pickup from P.F. Chang's, or,
Yeah, but they're a shopping mall,
yeah.
they're shopping centers, but if I do that in the city, I guarantee somebody's beyond me. You know, you guys are gracious enough to let me do a patio out front,
Mm-hmm.
to let people sit out front, and I appreciate that so much, okay? You guys able me to run a business, and I appreciate that so much. You guys get out of my hair, I totally appreciate that so much, and I try so hard to keep everything going, and I appreciate you guys for that. We're standing up to our government.
Well, I just wonder if there's another solution in a public street where that could happen, because I don't know, I mean, that's,
I know if I try stuff like that, somebody's gonna just.
well, no, well, I mean, the city would have to say, during COVID, we can't, you're not gonna eat outside anymore because it's 35 degrees outside, but we're gonna have these 2 parking spaces for pickup. Well, yeah. I mean, it's fair, what did you say, 21 weekends? I just said 21?
I think, I like Linda. Any restaurant.
So 25 weekends out of 50 weeks, you don't have a street in front of you. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Tell your sister I miss her in Old Town.
Paul?
My involvement with Boot, when I helped them put on car shows for many years, we held the shows on Sunday in behalf of the businesses. We had respect for the businesses, and we did not want to interfere with them on Sunday. By the time this car show's over, people are getting out of church and ready to go eat lunch. So it's kind of a good mix on all of this. So I never really heard of any real problems. And with the COVID, that's created a lot of problems, as all of us know. In May, Clovis has just come off of a month of events and activities that has disturbed their businesses. They deserve some time to get the businesses back under control and get ready for the next events. But to keep throwing something on top of them, on top of them, on top of them, I see it being very hard to maintain a good business on it. I've been putting on an event on the 3rd Saturday of May through September, 3rd Saturdays, Treasure Igmeyer Park. It's a free car show event for families. This event is in conflict with mine. I don't care how it's put out there, it's in conflict. You have to be at this event at 6 in the morning. Are you going to hang around in the heat in May all day and then go park at Igmeyer Park in the afternoon? You're not going to do that. You've been up since 5 and you're ready to go home. So this actually destroys my event, an event that I have been doing for the general public. I make no money off of it. I spend quite a bit of my own pocket money to put it on. From May to September, I have a few businesses in Old Town that do donate to it so that we can hold it. It's a very good event. We have a lot of fun, but having this event on that same day will destroy my event. I will not be able to hold it. And
So your event's on Saturday also?
Saturday evening. It officially starts at 4, people show up at 2:30
I see.
and go on. But, it's in conflict with what I'm doing on it. I just, I can't have that disturb my events. And if that's the case, then maybe I should not have my events anymore. Along with mine, I hold in June the induction into the Clovis Motorsports Hall of Fame every year on it. If you want to see the inductees, you can go to Sassano's. The trophy is in their window. But that is a big event, and we bring people from all over California to see people inducted into this event. And it's something that I started along with Kenny Takeuchi quite a few years ago, and I'd hate to see that go away. There are 52 weekends in a year. There's got to be another weekend that this can be held, not to interrupt something that has a tradition that has been going on in Clovis for many years and benefits people in Clovis. It doesn't bring in tons of money to everybody, no, but it has the other aspects, things that it does do for Clovis. And let us all have fun and get together once a month. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Cora Shipley, 433 Pulaski, Clovis, California. I'm president of the Business Organization of Old Town. And I want to address, number one, Bert, because he is a member of Old Town. He has a business there and has had it for many years. And we have tried to work with Bert for as long as I have been with Boot, which is 30 years. And before that, Carmela and Franco, they were very supportive of Boot. And I understand where he's coming from, but we try not to interfere. Our farmers market, the 29th that he's talking about, does not start till 5:30 in the afternoon, so his daytime is fully open. We have accommodated him by never blocking out the back alley so that he can have his pickups. That was his main thing, was people would order pizza, maybe not pick up because they couldn't get in the front door. So the city arranged for him to be able to pick up out of that back door of the alley. We do not block it. Once in a while, and I was with him one day this last year when the chamber blocked it, and he went down and under the barricade. But that was just because the chamber had some people that weren't familiar with his procedure of having that alley open. So our farmers market is something that brings a lot of people to town. The events that Boot puts on is for the whole city, not just Old Town, but for the whole city. We're very proud of all of our events, and many years ago, Clovis was voted one of the most event cities in the whole state of California. And we just think that we do a good job with our events. We try not to impact any stores in a negative way, and we bring a lot of businesses. It means their 8th day of the week. The farmers market is actually an 8th day of the week for a lot of merchants down there, and it kept them going through COVID and everything else that we have had to deal with the last 2 years. As far as the car show goes, we did partner with Anthony because we did have a staffing problem in Booth that everybody knows about. And so we could not put on that car show. We wanted it to continue because it was a very popular show. That in 2019, the last year that Boot did it, we had 430 cars on the streets. And it's a great event, and it's a family event. We have families that come with lots of little kids. They love those cars. But Anthony's event, and Anthony can talk to this, when he came and talked to us about taking it over, it is a 3-day event. He starts it on Friday, Saturday, and then ends on Sunday. So the car show was on Saturday last year, and we did not hear any complaints about it. So when we did our street closure request this year, we assumed it would be the same footprint. And we would have addressed it before this if we would have known that there was going to be a problem. But we had not heard any problem until after it was already set in motion and the date picked. So Anthony can talk more about the car show and what he brings to town. I'm not sure. We're talking 52 weeks in a year, so that's 52 Saturdays. If you take the 2 Saturdays that the chamber closes down and you add one more that we close down, 3 out of 52 I don't think is a startling number for what we do in Old Town. And so we're more than happy to answer any questions.
Corey, you said the car show was 3 days?
Anthony, is it 3 days? Yes, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and he does bring a lot of out-of-town people to this car show.
So on this sheet, Sean, it's only listed as 1 day.
So it's a 3-day event. Only one of the days is the car show that requires the street closure. The other one, we'll let Anthony kind of maybe describe what the event is. There's some other elements to it that don't have anything to do with Old Town Clovis.
Hi, guys. My name's Anthony Granata. I'm president of the Hot Rod Coalition. We are a local events company. We do about 5 events in Fresno over at the Palm and Knees facility, and then we do a big 3-day event out at the Madera Fairgrounds, the Valley Nationals. And then last year, I work in Clovis Unified, and I patronize a lot of the, storefronts in Old Town and I was a participant in their previous car shows. So when I had heard that there was staffing issues and just that they were struggling last year, also as an entrepreneur, I looked at that opportunity as something that maybe we could bring, a new, fresh vibe to the Old Town Clovis car show. So last year, I met with Sean, and I met with a couple of the employees, and I met with Boot numerous times at their meetings, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. We have a strategy that works. Typically, this is what me and the rest of kind of our promotions community up and down the West Coast uses. If we want to bring more economics to a city, and we we look at Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Friday night, we partner with a different storefront each year. Last year it was Crow and Wolf Brewery, and so that was outside of Old Town, but it was still inside the city. This year we're not sure who we're going to go with. We're still in chats with people. The event Saturday morning, we're cleaned up and out of Old Town by 2:30 or 3 o'clock. You guys are right. Every quilting group, every hot rod group, club, fly-by-night place wants to be in Clovis. It's beautiful. It's easy to get people out there. We do one event a year in Clovis, and that's the street closure event. There are a lot of other groups that I'm not aware of. Some of them I am, but I can assure you that that is not our group backing into parking stalls, putting up signs. At the end of the day, it grieves me to hear about Lunas. This has been a generation that we've gone to Lunas forever. What I'm taken back by a little bit is that, speaking with Cora, and then we also send out an evaluation to the storefronts last year asking, hey, what worked well, what didn't? Typically get about 20% of storefronts responding to us. It was all overwhelming. It was an overwhelming success from what I see. However, if it's things like you need 5 stalls or 10 stalls in front, take them. If that's a street closure that we're there, we'll make the signs for you. I'm also ignorant in some things. If we're not creating an hour backup line for your restaurant, and it's the every Saturday crowd that's coming in, then let's have a chat about that. But I'm thinking by the the masses that, I mean, the car guys love the antique stores. They love restaurants. I'm sure there's some that are put out by it, but at the end of the day, we want to do what's sure best for our business, but number one, we want to be welcomed here. So if there's anything we can do, and just, I mean, to speak to what Paul said, Paul and I grabbed coffee a couple of weeks ago and tried to hash this out respectfully, and I admire Paul, I respect Paul. I'm doing this event also on a weekend. That's a huge automotive event in Visalia. Another huge automotive event in out at Eagle Field in, forget exactly where that's at. You're not going to find a weekend, is what I'm saying, where there's not events compounding on each other. Parking lot 1, I'm still getting familiar. We didn't close any parking lots last year. Our alleyways were free and open. There is some, again, ignorance on our part where we might put a cone in a wrong spot. We worked with utilities and PD, and at the end of the day, if you guys want us back, we'll be here, and we're going to grow it and grow it and grow it. So hopefully it's something that the city can continue to be proud of. But again, we want to serve the city just as much as we want to try to create a good event. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I actually have a question for Cora. Other than Luna's, are there any other businesses that are adversely impacted by this? And the reason I'm asking is because potentially we could designate spaces as close as we can to that restaurant, but not on Pulaski, like in front of Clovis Catering, or even approaching a couple other people that would probably address some of this. And the question is, if that's correct, how many would we need?
Well, I think the problem would be with the street closure, they cannot get in and out. You know, when the cars come in for the car show, they're in until the very end. When we close for farmers market, when they come in at 5:30 or 5, whatever time they come in, they do not get out because the bollards go up. And so they're stuck there that whole day or that whole afternoon. So
I was specifically talking about putting it on 4th Street, the 2 spaces on 4th Street, and the people, if they're coming, they could come off Clovis Avenue, park there, walk, grab their stuff, get back in, and then go down the alley and go back home.
Yeah, we can do that. The booth represents everybody in Old Town in that PBIA area. We have about 75 or 80 actual members, and we listen to all of them if they have complaints. Greg Sassano really does not like Saturday events because, you know, but he's for the whole town. And so he really does not, if we can do it on a Sunday, we do it on a Sunday, just because of that. But,
and I'm only spitballing Classic Catering because that could adversely affect them. So I'm just, if we can identify 2 to 5 spaces that can be used, of course, then policing them will become difficult because this is where we have to hope that people are going to be.
Well, it's like Anthony said, he wants to be friends with everybody. He wants to be welcome to Old Town. And if we go on 4th Street in front of Classic Catering and we go from the alley to Clovis Avenue, block all those off, that can be, you know, a designated parking area or to-go containers or.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Still have a question. Anthony, yes? Thank you for your comments. You said you're usually out there by 2:30 or so?
Mm-hmm.
So the street closure is 5 to 5 or whatever it says.
Yeah.
5 a.m. to 5 p.m. But when you are done with your event, then you're done and the streets are open at 3:25. Or I mean, they're not closed till 5 o'clock. Is that right?
No.
Okay. And so you're usually done.
Yeah, last year was, again, my first year, and I forget the gentleman's name from PD who was out there, but he was there with at our award ceremony, and I said, hey, can we have our volunteers close up the A-frames, put them on the stop signs? And at that time, there was actually a medical emergency. They came in right at our trophy ceremony, and yeah, by 2:30, we were out of there. And that's what, and I get what Paul's saying about his event starts at 5, and You're right. I don't want to sit at an event that long either, but we have a lot. The reason why we do three-day shows is because we're in the nucleus right here in between Los Angeles and Northern California, and our marketing and everything spans the West Coast into Nevada and Arizona. And if we've got to keep them busy, because if there's not something to do, and that was one of the things I told Paul, is our friends that are coming from out of town, if we're talking about a car event that can be anywhere from 400 to 650 cars, it's going to be pretty easy to get our out-of-town friends over to a barbecue, a quarter mile down the street. But again, and like I think you were saying, Cora, is we're happy to adjust that street closure footprint. I just don't know always how traffic flows appropriately, and maybe that's a PD question. But yeah, if we let the streets open all the way up until the alleyways, yeah, that's because what we do is we have the bollards, if I'm pronouncing that right, up, but we also park cars and we kind of create a security barrier there as well. And I guess it's just the annoyance of if a car makes a right turn or a left-hand turn, they got to make a U-turn in the middle there. But any of that stuff, guys, you guys make the rules, not me. I'm not here to push back on them. I'm just here to obey what you guys tell us to.
Any more questions? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment from the public? Okay, how about the web?
No.
I'll bring it back to council.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request for street closures with the elimination of parking lot 1 from this particular event. But I would encourage you, which has done for 30 years, to work with Bert. I think you heard some maybe solutions about parking in front, parking for pickup, parking around the corner. So I think we can figure that out. I don't think I know we're not a shopping center, but there are streets that we could do if we wanted. So I think we can help, we can figure that out. I mean, we did outdoor dining. I think we can find a way to do this around the corner if that's what it is. So, and I just keep talking to Boot because they're only as successful as businesses. So their job certainly is not to make you unsuccessful. So thank you for being down there all these years, for sure. That's my motion.
But with the fact that it's going to close at 2:30 and the streets will be opened up very quickly after that,
Yeah.
and the parking lot 1 being reopened, and maybe staff can work on finding some designated spaces for public events like this, I'm willing to second this.
Okay. Before I call the question, I think Lynn brought up a great idea as far as, with DoorDash and Uber Eats and then all the takeout orders that are out there, there should be during this emergency period, some designated, I don't say 2 per restaurant, but maybe 2 per block where restaurants are very available. Maybe 2 on the 300 block of Pulaski, maybe another 2 on the 400 400 block of Pulaski. But enough for all these other people who, there's a gig economy now with the DoorDash and Uber Eats. I'm sure they're constantly there picking up food from Luna's and the Chico's and from the House of Juju and all these places. Well, we're fortunate in Clovis that we have all these great restaurants in Old Town Clovis, and people, because of COVID and other things, aren't coming out, and they're using these delivery service to and take advantages of it, so they don't get exposed. And then the takeout, I've heard from many restaurants that the takeout orders have gone sky high, especially the pizzerias. So we should consider that, see if that's a possibility. I don't say we can't hurt the other businesses, but a few per block may be available that are designated, just like on the regular malls where it's annoying as hell, but
I think people are used to it. They, like, when they see an open spot and they go, then they just park somewhere else most of the time. And you have some cool little sign like, thanks for eating Old Town Clovis, or I don't know. I think it's worth checking out.
And Jose, having those spaces available, as I understand it, these apps cut into the business's bottom line.
I don't know. I think a lot of businesses like them. So.
Well, I talked to people who say that it takes a decent amount of money off their.
Well, maybe it could be an item that comes before us and let the business talk for themselves. And do they like these do they like this delivery service or not?
But if we did it, it would be for everybody, not just for Uber Eats. It's like, I'm picking up my meal.
Yeah, take a
Yeah, it should be for takeout orders or,
Takeout orders only, not Uber, not DoorDash, I mean, they can park there because they're
Right.
doing that.
but
it's
the
not
rule would
reserved
say,
for them.
these are the people that can park there. Uber Eats, takeout orders, Uber Eats, maybe takeout orders will be hierarchy. Uber Eats, DoorDash, blah, blah, blah.
And staff will bring that back as a separate action to allow us to run it through the community and see what kind of feedback we get.
Especially where we own the parking, because at malls can do whatever they want, but in Old Town, they can't. I think Bert was right on point on that. So there's a motion, and there's a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So it's 5-0, the motion carries.
You know, Bert, if Nani's house delivered, it'd be so much better. I said, if Nani's house delivered, it would be so much better for me. Tell Mary Ellen I said that.
Moving on to public hearings. A public hearing is an open consideration within a regular or special meeting of the City Council for which special notice has been given and may be required. When a public hearing is continued, notice of the adjourned item is required per the Government Code 54955.1. Item 14. I have a conflict with that. I have a financial interest in property just across the street from this item, so I cannot participate. Therefore, I'm going to recuse myself, and it will be led by our Mayor Pro Tem, Lynn Ashbeck.
Thank you. All right, item 14, consider actions related to the annexation of territory, annexation number 72, tract 6349, northeast corner Shaw and Locan, tract 6377, the southeast corner of Shaw and Leonard, to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District number 2004-1, Police and Fire Services, and I will read A and B as well. 14A is a resolution annexing territory, same location, to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District number 2004-1, and calling a special landowner election to annex the territory. And B is a resolution of the City of Clovis declaring the results of the special landowner election and directing recording of the notice of special tax lien for the CFD as previously stated. So with that, I will say this. This is a time and place for the public hearing in this council. Is this right, Jay? Jay, you want me to say this now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm just so proud of myself. Okay. This is the time and the place for the public hearing in this council's proceedings for Community Facilities District number 2004-1. The hearing is to acquire annexation number 72 into the district and the levy of special taxes in annexation number 72. Before I formally open the hearings, is there anyone who wishes to file a written protest? If so, they must be filed with the city clerk now. I am seeing no one. No one? All right. The hearing is now open. We will have the first presentations by staff about annexation number 72. After that, we will receive comments and questions and any oral protests from any interested persons. When all comments have been received, the hearing will be closed. And the staff on this is our Finance Director, Jay Shaman.
Good evening. On December 13th, 2021, the council heard a request by the affected property owners to include territory at T6349, the northeast corner of Shaw and Locan, and T6377, the southeast corner of Shaw and Leonard, and as indicated in the detailed map and identified as CFD annexation number 72 to the city CFD 2004-1. Tonight's actions will finalize the annexation process by holding a public hearing and property owner election.
You are fast. Okay. Are there comments or questions from the council first on staff presentation or this item? All right, seeing none, is there anyone in the audience wanting to comment on this item or online? There is no one. I will close the hearing. We may now consider and adopt the resolution annexing territory, annexation number 72 to Community Facilities District number 2004-1, which will annex territory described in the boundary map to the district and call a special property owner election, which will call for the property owner vote to approve the special tax and appropriations limit for annexation number 72.
Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, I will move that we approve the resolution of the annexation number 72 and call the special landowner election to annex the territory.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second, to that item. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 with 1 abstention. Will the clerk please announce the result of the property owner vote?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll cover it. Staff is in receipt of 2 ballots representing a total of 7 votes, all in favor, indicating 100% support of the annexation.
Thank you. The record shows that the property owner votes are unanimous and in favor of the levy of the special taxes and the establishment of the appropriations limit. We may now proceed with the final actions for the district.
I'll move that we approve the resolution of the City of Clovis declaring the results of a special landowner election and directing the recording of the notice of the special tax lien for the City of Clovis Community Facilities District, number 2004-1.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a motion and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 with 1 abstention. That concludes item 14. I'll get it. You're welcome.
The next item is administrative items. Administrative items are matters on the regular city council agenda other than public hearings. Item 15, consider various actions associated with CIP 1619, the State Route 168 Enterprise Canal Pedestrian Bridge Project east of Temperance Avenue and south of Owens Mountain Parkway. A, receive and file status update on the design of the pedestrian bridge. B, consider approval of terminating the pedestrian bridge design contract with Biggs Cardosa Associates, and staff will be our Planning and Development Service Director, Renee Mathis, and our City Engineer, Mike Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. As the mayor mentioned tonight, we have an item before you where I will be presenting a status update on the progress we've made to date on the pedestrian bridge design. And then staff will also be making a recommendation to the council to terminate the design contract with Biggs Cardosa. Staff's recommendation is solely due to the substantially higher than expected construction estimates that we have to date. Before I get started with the presentation, I wanted to bring to council's attention a late public correspondence that we did receive. After the packet had gone out, the correspondence is from Dwight Kroll, our former planning director, who at the time when this project was early in its stages was pretty involved with the project. So my presentation tonight is really going to focus on 4 components. I want to give an update and cover the project background and funding, the current project design status. I'd like to review with council the bridge types that we have developed to date and the estimated construction costs of those bridge concepts. And then staff would really like for council to consider 3 different options for either terminating the current design contract or proceeding with it, and either terminating it after phase 1 or completing it doing phase 1 and phase 2. Staff has spent quite a bit of time evaluating these options, and I say this sincerely with a heavy heart. This is an important project, and it was a lot for staff to really evaluate and come tonight with you with our recommendation. But we do have a sound recommendation that we believe is the fiscally responsible recommendation for council to consider. So to get us all in the proper location, the proposed pedestrian bridge is located east of Temperance Avenue. It runs along the Enterprise Canal, or in the general location of the Enterprise Canal. It is proposed to go over 168 and then would continue along the future trail alignment along the Enterprise Canal. This exhibit shows you that general location. So a little bit about the project background and funding. Back in September of 2015, city staff worked with Caltrans to prepare a need and feasibility study on whether or not a bridge would be an important element to this area. That study concluded that a pedestrian bridge would provide seamless continuity over State Route 168. It would directly link the surrounding land uses. It would also ultimately provide a connection down to our Loma Vista area, and overall is just really a major enhancement to our trail network. So based on the findings of that 2015 study, staff went out and sought funds to actually do the design work. We were successful in securing a $1.2 million Cmac grant in 2017 to actually begin the process of designing a signature pedestrian bridge over 168. I do want to note, let me go back. When we were working with Caltrans on the 2015 need feasibility study, at that time, Caltrans and city staff very preliminarily identified that a pedestrian bridge could be constructed in the neighborhood of about $7 million. We still felt like that was high, but at the time, knowing what we knew about the project location and what generally we were looking for in the area, we thought, okay, a $7 million project is something feasible. Okay, so moving forward, once we received that Cmac grant for $1.2 million, staff went out with an RFP to solicit proposals from bridge design consultants to actually prepare the design of the bridge. We ended up coming back to council in June of 2019, where council authorized staff to enter into a contract with Biggs, Cardoza and Associates for approximately $1.2 million to design a pedestrian bridge in that general location. At the time, we knew that our estimates were very, very preliminary, and so we entered into the contract in 2 phases to give us the opportunity to really review and make a decision while we were in the phase 1 portion of the contract, if we could afford this project, if this was fiscally something we could see ourselves financing. So the 2-phased contract with Biggs Cardoza is broken up as such. Phase 1 is really dedicated to the preliminary bridge design. We're not actually designing it. At this point, we're talking about an alignment, we're talking about bridge concepts, we're holding public meetings, we're doing environmental work, and we're selecting, based on those public meetings, a concept. Phase 2 takes that design concept and then does the final design and the construction documents. And again, just to kind of hit home, in 2019, when we brought this to council, we knew that these concepts and the realistic estimates needed to fully be vetted out under the phase 1, and that once we were into the phase 1, we would be able to come back with a decision to either terminate the contract or proceed based on a more sound estimate. So to date, since we've entered into that contract with Biggs Cardoza, we've completed about 45% of just the phase 1 work. So the phase 1 work completed to date includes the bridge alignment, 4 bridge concept types, which I'll go over here in a minute, some photo simulations of each of those bridge types, and then estimated construction costs for each of those bridge types. To date, we've spent about $360,000 in design contract and staff time. Of the $360,000, and this is important to note, we've been reimbursed from the Cmac grant approximately $260. The remaining phase one work that we have yet to do, so the remaining, 55%, would be all of our public outreach, our environmental review for CEQA and NEPA. We need to do NEPA because of the Cmac grant. It's a federal grant. We need to prepare some additional structural studies, and this work all is estimated to cost an additional $245,000 plus staff time. So the current project design status, where are we? Again, what we have out of the 45% of the work that's complete is we've got some concept bridge types that include one standard Caltrans bridge, and it includes 3 signature bridge concepts. Again, the proposed bridge is in the location of the RT Park. It's in and adjacent to it, and as we know, the RT Park has some design guidelines that call out for visually clean and edgy building structures. So keeping that in mind, the 3 signature bridge concept types that we have developed to date really represent what we believe the RT Park design context is looking for. It's important to note that while we have these 3 signature bridge concepts identified, we haven't selected one because we haven't gone out with our public meetings yet to really vet all 4 of these bridge concepts with the public. So the 4 bridge types and the estimated construction costs are here before you. We've got a standard Caltrans box girder bridge. That's approximately $10.7 million. You can see that here. Let me see, right there. That's our standard Caltrans. Then moving over, you've got a 2-arch span bridge. That's estimated at $15.8 million here in this area. Then coming down here, we've got a 3-arch span bridge. That's about $15.1 million. And then we have here at the bottom right corner, the cable stayed bridge at $17.5 million. These are construction costs only, so it doesn't include the cost to design the project. That is correct. Those are today's costs for construction. So getting back to the contract that we have with Biggs Cardoza, their design contract really assumed a standard Caltrans bridge could be designed based on a construction cost of approximately $7 million. That's how their contract was set up. I just went over the 4 different bridge concepts, and in today's dollars, the construction cost of a standard Caltrans bridge is currently running over $10 million. So we're already $3 million over what we kind of assumed back in 2019 as a starting point. The signature bridge estimates, they range anywhere from $15 to $18 million for construction. So Biggs Cardoza, their contract is significantly insufficient to complete a signature bridge design. Due to the high construction estimates that we're currently seeing as part of the phase 1 work that we've done, that's where staff is coming back to you with 3 options to really consider as far as, do we terminate the contract now or do we move forward in some kind of phased approach to complete the design work? So I'm going to go through each of the 3 options that we've laid out for council and then end with what staff is recommending. So under option 1, we would complete all of the phase 1 work. Again, we've done about 45% of that work to date. So the remaining items of work would be all of our public outreach, our environmental studies, and then preparation of some remaining structural design reports. After this work is done, we would then terminate the contract with Biggs Cardoza. We anticipate the additional phase 1 work would take about a year, maybe a year and 3 months to complete because we have that environmental work. So the pros with this option is that we end with a selected bridge type. We have an alignment, we have a solid cost estimate in today's dollars. We've got all of the completed environmental review package done. We could then utilize this work to seek funding opportunities to complete the final design, which is really phase 2 of the current contract. And we could also seek fundings for the construction of the project and any construction documents. The cons with option 1 is that we would have to pay back all the Cmac grant funds that we've received to date. And the reason we have to pay it back is because we're not finishing the complete project. The federal Cmac grant funds were to complete phase 1 and phase 2 work. Here we're saying we're just going to do the phase 1 work. So if we do that, we have to pay back the Cmac grant. Again, to date, we've received about $260,000, so that means we pay that back to the feds. And then on top of what we've already spent to date, which is $360,000, we would spend another $245,000 roughly to complete the phase 1 work. So you're looking at over $600,000 to finish the phase 1 of the project, and we would have to utilize street maintenance funds to do that because we wouldn't have a grant. Under option 2, we would complete all of the phase 1 and the phase 2 work. So that means we have a fully designed signature bridge, including construction documents. We've done everything that the Cmac grant laid out. The pros with that is we've got a complete design package, we're ready for bidding. We could use that completed design package to really seek funding opportunities to construct the bridge, because we would need to secure where that funding's coming from. The cons with option 2 is that we would need to find additional funds to finish both the phase 1 and the phase 2 work. We don't currently have construction funding identified, and if we were not able to take our project to construction by 2027, which is another provision of the grant, we could potentially have to pay back the $1.2 million we received in Cmac funds. Under option 3, which is what staff is recommending, we would terminate the design contract immediately with Biggs Cardoza, and we would not incur any further expenses. Now, the pros to this option is we do end up with 4 concept bridge types. We have a preferred alignment, and we've got current construction cost estimates. And we would not spend any more money on this project without having some certainty in where, what those funds would be. Maybe it's a grant or so forth. The cons with option 3 is we really do have an incomplete design package, and we still have to pay back all the Cmac grant funds that we've received to date because, again, we haven't completed the project as we were awarded the funds from Cmac. But we would only be using street maintenance funds to cover the costs incurred to date, and that's about $360,000. So in summary, again, staff is here because the estimated cost for the construction of the signature bridge in this location is substantially higher than we had envisioned and originally contemplated back in 2015 and 2019 when we started working on this project. And due to the uncertainty in securing funding to finish the final design and the construction and the high demand for our street maintenance funds to do street maintenance work, staff is recommending to council that we terminate the contract with Biggs Cardoza immediately and not incur any further expenses. I will say in closing that we won't give up on trying to find funding. It's just with the resources that we've completed to date, we'd utilize that as a benchmark to now go out and try to find funding to finish the design, and then knowing we've got a solid cost estimate for construction, utilizing that to try to secure construction funding. I will say that trying to find construction funding in the neighborhood of $15 to $18 million will be difficult. It'll be hard to find a single source of revenue to cover that, so it could be a combination of grants, of local participation from, private parties. It could be some city resources. So it will take some commingling of funds to get that kind of money together to finish the project. So in summary, staff's recommendation is to accept the receive and file of the status update on the current design progress for the pedestrian bridge, and then to consider staff's recommendation to terminate the pedestrian bridge design contract with Biggs Cardoza immediately. That does conclude staff's presentation. I am here to do my very best to answer your questions. I have Mike, if we dig deep into any of the engineering questions available, and then Biggs Cardoza is also here as well in the audience if you have any questions for them.
Questions for staff?
Yeah. At the outset, I'd like to say staff did an excellent job on this, especially Dwight. I was very impressed with the concept. I really appreciate what Biggs Cardoza brought to the table here. I voted no on this just because I could not justify spending that kind of money, the money then, on a project when we had not addressed some of our older areas of towns and parkings. But now we have demonstration of bridges that we could potentially put for trail connectivity over Barstow Avenue at Peach, so we can connect the park to the trail. And so I don't know, I don't think we didn't waste our time doing this. I think we might be able to use this as a sounding board for some other stuff. So I just want to say I appreciate what staff did, and my no vote was not because I didn't like the project. And thanks, Dwight. I'm assuming you're listening.
Bob?
Do any of these options get us shovel-ready?
No. If we went with option 2, you would be shovel-ready because you would have a complete project designed and construction document.
The federal government has made a big deal in the past about making sure that if they're going to be funding any projects, that they need to be shovel-ready. And I would like to have this shovel-ready so we could take advantage of any of those funds. But have those funds pretty much been allocated, or are they still up in the air or available? And these are more like the, I remember it during the recession, of course, we had it, or the big recession. And then I believe with CARES Act funding and the infrastructure, Build Back Better, I think maybe is what it's called. I don't even know where that is these days. And if they are looking for shovel-ready projects as well. So I don't, I'm a big fan of this project. I know you are too. And I think we all are, to get that connectivity for the Enterprise Canal and not have people go through that, that Temperance underpass. So if we go with the option 2 that's going to cause us to be shovel-ready, does that make sense in this day and age, because there are some funds available for shovel-ready projects?
So to answer your question, if we went with option 2, we would have a completely designed project. We will have gone through the public outreach process. We'd have finished the environmental. We would have selected a design, a bridge design concept. We'd have fully designed it, and we'd have construction documents ready. The problem is we don't have a construction funding source secured, and the likelihood of us being able to find, let's say we went with the cable-stayed structure of approximately $18 million, we don't have a funding source earmarked right now. So we would be out looking for that, shy of the city dedicating city resources. We would be looking for potentially maybe Measure C if it made it into the next measure. I'm not even sure that that would work with the timing. I mentioned the Cmac, if we weren't under construction by 2027, we could potentially have to pay back the $1.2 million that we received to design it. We could look at the next federal transportation bill. We would compete at our local level, and some of those resources are limited. And so I don't know that any one agency has ever received $18 million in a competitive solicitation for a project. So the likelihood of us at the local level through COG getting those funds is not common. We would search for funds at the state level, like the Active Transportation Program. Now, that pot of money is much larger. Again, it's geared towards disadvantaged areas, so we automatically lose points because we're not disadvantaged. I think we would compete well, but would we rise to the top to get the full amount of money that we would need for the project? It's just, right now it's uncertain. So I think if you were to put me on the spot and say, Renee, could we get money, by 2027 to construct this project? I'm not confident that we could at this point in time, knowing the funds that we have available and we've gone after in the past.
Can I point something out as well? In order for us to, depending on the structure that we choose, we will need significant extra dollars today in order to finish the design. Because the current contract is for the basic Caltrans box girder style of bridge. So if we want to get that shovel ready, I think we probably could do that. But if we select any of the other structures, it's going to be something that we're going to have to find as between $1 and $2 million additional dollars just for the design.
So let's just say that we chose to go with staff's recommendation, and we terminate the contract. What if we saw an opportunity to get some funds? How quickly can we get ourselves to shovel ready? Anybody?
So let me start, Mike, and you can jump in. So once we terminate the contract with Biggs Cardozo, we now do not have a bridge consultant on contract with the city. So let's say we are successful in getting funds to finish what is left on phase 1 and phase 2. We'd have to go out with an RFP to bring a consultant on board. And then once that consultant's on board, and that sometimes can take a couple of months just in the RFP and the selection process, the remaining phase 1 work is about a year long, and then the phase 2 work, Mike, would be another.
I'm going to look to our consultants to tell us how long that is, but it's at least a year of design and maybe a little bit longer after we get somebody on board.
So 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know how that fits into the timeline related to funding, though. Let's say that there's, it works for some of the federal funds that are out there to have something like this built. We won't be able to get ourselves up to speed, it sounds like, in order to capture some of that funding if we terminate the contract now, because we're going to basically have to go another 2 years. And I just don't, I wish we were closer, right? I wish we had a shovel-ready project and we could start, marketing it out there to the federal dollars that are presently available. And so let me ask the question a different way. If we went with option 2, how long will it take to finish up that? Another year?
Yeah, I'm guessing another year.
Option 2 is completing phase 1 and...
Yes.
Option 2 is completing phase 1 and phase 2 work. So it's at least a year to finish the phase 1 work. That's the public outreach and the environmental studies and the additional structural report. Once that's done, then we move into phase 2, which is you've got your bridge concept selected, you've got your alignment selected. Now we're going to do final design and construction documents. And Mike indicated that could be another year.
So the difference between the two would be a couple months to bring a new consultant on board.
Now, with option 2, it'd be the same consultant, and it'd still be another $1 million or more?
So So if we were to finish phase 1 and 2 now with the basic structure, we could get it shovel ready. I don't think that's the structure that everyone wants. If we want to go with one of those signature structures, yes, there's going to be an additional $1 to $2 million, depending on what we select and the expense of that.
To be shovel-ready, $2 more million, up to.
Okay.
And Councilmember Whalen, if I may, the reason that we cannot tell you the exact amount of the design contract is it really depends on the bridge structure that's selected. The more complex the structure, the more costly it will be for the consultant to finish the design. So the public outreach really plays a part in what structure we select.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike's example was related to the cable stayed structure. That's the most expensive bridge concept. If we went with that concept, we'd be looking at an additional, on top of the $1.2 million that we have in Cmac funds, it could be an additional $1.8 million just to finish the design. That's a $3 million design contract. Then you're shovel ready. We've got that Cmac deadline of getting under construction by 2027. Let's say we miss that. Now we pay back the $1.2 million. And we're still, we're shovel ready, but we still don't have construction funds.
Well, it just seems to me it's pretty difficult to navigate the timing and the cost. So, the best case scenario would be that, Measure C passes. This is identified as a project that would be funded, at least a certain amount would be funded. Maybe the design would be completed. They would throw $3 million for this pedestrian bridge. Then we have maybe the Speaker of the House who's friendly to the city of Clovis and can find some federal dollars for us somewhere in order to begin the construction of it. And I just don't want to miss that opportunity. I do feel as though there is a window that is open for federal funds for projects like this. It just sounds as though I don't know when that window is going to close, and even if we went with option 2, I don't even know if we would meet that window. So anyway, I'm just thinking out loud, and any comments that staff can contribute to my thoughts, I guess I would like to know.
Well,
So these things always take this long, 2019 till now, just to get concepts? Is that pretty normal?
I don't believe that's normal. We've had COVID hit, we've had staff changes, we've had to bring new staff on and get them acclimated to the project. So we've had delays that are not typically common. We have spent quite a bit of time researching these costs, determining, before we come to you to present these estimates, that they're pretty sound. We spent quite a bit of time making sure that the bridge concepts, the signature bridge concepts, really kind of met the context of the RT park. And so I believe this is a complicated and complex project. Since 2019, should we be here saying it's only 45% complete? I think that's longer than typical.
Okay. And are the costs inflated because current costs of supplies are higher as well, or can it potentially go lower when the supply chain comes back to normal, everything comes back, price of cost, everything goes down?
So I'm going to defer to Mike to really answer the question. I do know that there is no inflation factor right now on the estimates. They're based on current construction costs. I would also defer to our consultants to see if they're seeing costs come down. We haven't seen that, but Mike, you might have more to add.
I really don't. In the area of bridge construction, I would have to look to our consultants as well. They're here, they're available whenever you get to that point.
I think even if it's high, I think it's probably a good number. So the Cmac funds, why we're returning, is it because of that requirement for construction? So we're option 3, and we're refunding some, but it's because we know we probably potentially can't make the 2027, so that's why we're refunding anything. There's nothing in there that says you can spend X amount for planning and design.
So the grant itself requires us to complete the project as we applied for the funds. So the Cmac funds that we applied for were to complete phase 1 and phase 2 work. If we stop short of having a fully designed with construction document project completed, we have to pay back the funds. So under option 1, we'd only be doing phase 1 work. We would not be doing phase 2. We have to pay it back. Okay. Under option 2, we're doing both phase 1 and phase 2 work. We don't pay anything back. But if we can't get to construction by 2027, then we run the risk of having to pay that $1.2 million back because that's a provision of the grant. Under option 3, similar to option 1, we're not finishing the phase 1 work and we're not doing the phase 2 work. We're terminating the contract, so we have to pay those funds that we've received to date back.
Because we have to pay it back, I like option 2, because you got to pay it back no matter what. And I'd rather have it and complete it and have 10 years, potentially, not 10 years anymore, but to look for and be ready. And that's why that option is very favorable to me, because, we're going to pay that 1.2 mil back in no matter what. So let's spend it, because even if we don't get it, we got to pay it back. I know that there's a potential 1.8 extra that we need to find someplace in order to make it shovel ready. But I think that's something much more manageable than 17 million or 18 million. But at least we make it where the scenarios that Councilman Member Whalen presented makes us very ready. And I think that's much more advantageous, because I think option 3, I hate to say it, but I think it really just kills it, because, we're going to pay back the 1.2 million anyway, so we're going to pay it back, but there's no more money. So if we went to go look for another 1.2 to do it, well, we should have just kept it and just 1.2. We can get up to 1.8 and finish the design. That's the way I'm thinking, and so that's.
But can I just very quickly? So I want to make sure the council, under this option, understands by completing the phase 1 and the phase 2 work, we do not have enough Cmac money. The Cmac money is 1.2 million. Once we've selected a bridge design that a concept that the public likes, that council likes, that will kind of dictate to us how much more money we need to finish the design contract. Right now, based on the estimates that we have, if we went with the most expensive concept, the cable stayed structure, we would need an additional $1.8 million.
Yes, I understand that.
Okay.
So that's why if you go with option 3, you give 1.2 back.
We've only received to date $260,000. That's what we get back.
But I'm just saying that that's the amount that so in other words, to continue again, you would need to go find that plus the 1.8 mil. You see, and so in other words, there's so much more to get, again, just to start. But if we go for it, all we need is that 1.8, potentially, the max, 2 million, we'll say. We just need 2 million. And that's much more doable, and then we're ready. And then it can be a dream that can be fulfilled. So that's my thing.
The cost for design is about $3 million. And if we don't make it to 2027 to construction, we have to pay. It's all on us. It's all on the city's budget, $3 million, because we'll have to pay the grant back, and we just put $1.8 million back. And so, but if we cancel these contracts, then we have to go to RFP again, select a consultant. It could be the same consultant, but it might not be. You know what happens when you select another consultant?
They start over.
They trash everything the first consultant ever did. And guess what? You're at step 1. And so if you thought 2 years was late, it's probably going to be 3 years, because if they've taken from 19 to now to do what they've done, and COVID for some reason, no one wants it to go away. I do. It's over. Anyway, says the mayor of Clovis.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's good.
Anyway, but there's going to be delays upon delays. But the only thing we have to worry about right now is 1.8 million plus that deadline of 2027 if we want option 2. That's a big lift, and that's 5 of us that have to decide that.
Can I ask Renee a question? Go ahead. CEQA and NEPA, we go stage 1, stage 2. We get our CEQA and NEPA stuff, and then we don't move forward because we don't have the funding. We're paying all that back. How long are those valid before we have to do it again, and then maybe somebody comes up with a different law?
Sure. So typically, the CEQA works good for about 5 years, you know.
Okay.
Now, if your project significantly changes, then we may need to come back and reevaluate it. Our envelope, the area, is pretty defined, so I don't see it significantly changing. I believe, if I'm just coming off memory, the CEQA work associated with the phase 1 portion of this is roughly about $60,000 or $70,000 to do CEQA and NEPA. So we have a little bit of time. I mean, it really kind of depends on what the final product is and if it's significantly different if we went with an option where, like, we terminated and restarted and came back.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Sure. So one small question is, can you just suspend the contract with Biggs Cardoza as opposed to cancel and restart it? Is there some public rule that says you can't do that, so we wouldn't have to start over again? Because that does seem like a super bad idea.
I'm going to defer to Scott on
Can
the
you-
suspension of
If
contract.
they, I mean, they have to be willing to just hold
Yeah.
on, but I mean, is there an option to not cancel an agreement?
Well, we've got certain deadlines already in the agreement, and presumably they're working towards those deadlines unless we terminate the contract. So, I mean, I guess theoretically, we could amend the contract and have, you know, extend the deadline 2 years or something and leave it as kind of indefinite suspension. But, I mean, realistically, I don't know that they would want to be on the hook. I mean, that would be a question for them.
Well, yeah, I mean, they may choose not to do that, but
Yeah, I
so
mean,
just another option potentially to get around that. My second question is, I think maybe for me, so I think 2 things. Dwight raises that aside from the signature nature, because I, of course, like the most expensive one, that today is 16 million, give or take, and by the time 2027 comes around, it'll be 24 million, or I don't know, something like that. But the goal was to link and enhance the trail development, and there are other opportunities to do that. So I think the question for staff is, well, so we can't do this right now. We still want the best connectivity between underneath the freeway, however that is. So I think that does beg the work that something needs to occur in that space, because that was the ultimate goal, to get people from the hospital to the housing on the north of 168. So I still think I don't want to lose sight of our goal with that. And then I guess my third question is, is this even practical anymore? I mean, I don't want to give up on it. I mean, I think we have to ask ourselves in 2020, I mean, if we don't think we can afford it in today or in 2027, is it the right vision? I don't know. I mean, I think it's beautiful and I want that bridge like right now. And I hope Dwight's not listening. Just saying. I mean, it is the right thing. So how long do you hold on to the right thing? I guess I'm just worried about that a little bit. I, though, agree with Vong and Bob. I don't think I want to just give up what we've done now. That seems like not a very, like, that doesn't seem smart at all. I'd rather finish the work, and I don't know about the 3 million, to your point. 1.2 in the grant, additional 1.8, I get all that. But I think if we stop now, I do think it's done. I think we'd start all over again in 3 years, or we think it's different. So I'm of the opinion that we should at least finish what we've started through at least option 1, and then see maybe, you know, or 1 and 2 to Vong's idea. But I don't feel like I want to just say, nah, we didn't work out and we can't do it, because then I think we this won't come back for a decade. I don't see a way forward for that. So,
I thought I heard Bob say he wanted to go to stage 2. No?
Option 2 would complete phases 1 and 2. Yeah,
All right.
that's where I'm thinking right now. But I truly want to hear from the consultants, and frankly, I want to hear from my colleagues on the council on it because it's a big ask, you know. We generally don't gamble with taxpayer dollars. It's like, okay, well, wait a second here. There's some risk associated with it. I mean, who knows? Maybe COG, when it comes to Cmac funds, we are going to say, hey, COVID really kind of set us back a little bit, and we have an extension before, on that 2027 date. I don't know if that was through. I remember the vote in COG, but that's probably more of a state of California question or a federal question to extend beyond 2027. Is that right?
That's for, you're referring to the Cmac dollars?
Yeah, the Cmac dollars.
I think that's a federal requirement of Cmac. That's a deadline.
We could go to the feds and say, hey, you know what? That 2027, we need to extend that because it was just a rough set of events that nobody expected. Can we go to 2030 or 2035, something like that? Those are more.
So I want to answer both of your questions. I'm going to start with Bob's first because that's easier, believe it or not. We have in the past asked for extensions on some of our funding. We have to make certain justifications. I think if the council's direction tonight is to proceed, then we would definitely make sure we have those options, and we would be talking to the COG and FHWA, Caltrans headquarters on what our options are, so we wouldn't lose sight of that. Lynn, to answer your 3 questions. So question number 1 was I think I remembered the suspension of the contract. So Biggs Cardoza's current contract goes through June of 2023. We just extended it. If we needed to do an extension beyond that, I think we could work with Scott and their firm on a further extension. The safety of how pedestrians and bicyclists currently traverse to the north and south side, you're absolutely right. That was one of the big reasons we looked at going after a pedestrian bridge. Not only would it connect a gap, but you've got on and off ramps, some that are unprotected, that it's a bit of a hazard. So we've got sidewalks, we've got bike lanes, but yes, we would continue to ensure that that area is safe. Is the vision correct? I personally think the vision's right on. I mean, we don't want, I'm sorry if Caltrans is listening, Caltrans box girder bridge. No. We want a landmark signature structure in this area. You've got the mountains, it's in the RT park, it connects, the hospital with the land uses. It will basically take our citizens and those that are not living in the Clovis area. It gives them an opportunity to go all the way from Loma Vista up, out to Harlan Ranch, to Northwest Clovis via our other trail system. So I think it's definitely a vision. Do I think it'll be cheaper? I haven't seen costs go down. They typically continue to go up. So I think that answers your three questions.
I think you're right in terms of the vision. I mean, we're trying to build for 50 years from now. We're not trying to build today. I get that. I'd like to have it today, but that's not. So what do we want to leave behind? I think we want to leave behind some bridge like this for sure. I think that is right. So I think the question is how can we be best positioned to do that? So a council 10 years from now, that will not include me, probably. No, definitely. What do we leave behind for them if it takes that long? And I do think there has to be, maybe this is our Veterans Boulevard. Maybe there's Measure C dollars to do something like this. I mean, it's not out of the question. I think that's totally legit to think about funding a project like this, having a category Measure C that's called something. I don't know what it is. Is it active transportation? I mean, that's what we're trying to do, get you from here to there. Mm-hmm. It's just a big ticket item under active transportation, but I think this is the moment that Vong could, offer that input as we formulate Measure C ideas. There's not a reason why, or maybe you get some of the money and you match it with a federal grant, or Mr. McCarthy finds his way to Clovis, because I'm pretty sure he's never been here, but if he found his way to Clovis, he might see and go, that is a great spot for a bridge. I think all that's possible. I don't want to miss that. I think I don't want to miss all those opportunities, so.
If I may, I just want, and again, I think you're all very hopefully clear, and the presentation has laid everything out methodically, as methodical as you can be in a complicated project. Under option 2, which it's got a little traction, the $1.2 million in Cmac funds, we wouldn't pay back right now. We'd utilize every single penny of that. And in addition to that, we could need up to $1.8 million to finish the design. That would most likely come from street maintenance funds.
But not in this fiscal year.
No, it will
not
take,
even in next fiscal year.
it will take us some time to finish the phase 1 and the phase 2 work. With that, you end with a shelf-ready project that's shovel-ready. Now, what that means is we've finished the design, but we still have to find how we're going to construct it. So in the examples we have here in the bridge that you've voiced you'd like, the cable stayed structure, that's roughly $18 million we would be looking for. Measure C is a potential, I mean, Councilmember Montoya, you can speak to that, a potential option. We would continue to search other funding sources. It could be a combination of sources. You know, we haven't stopped looking yet. It's just, it's a big task. So I think we're all clear on option 2. I just wanted to make sure we've laid that out as you.
Well, and you're going to do them in parallel. If we go with option 2, we're going to finish the work. We're going to save a little money this fiscal year and next fiscal year and the next fiscal year to pay the $1.8 million additional, or you know, however we're aware of our need to have $1.8 million, and you're going to look for funding for the construction, all simultaneously, right? We're not going to get to the end and go, okay, we've got the plan, now we need the money. So, I mean, I do think it could happen all at the same time.
And we can also look for grants for the 1.8, I mean, you know.
Yeah, potentially. It's very difficult to secure a grant after you've done the work and ask for reimbursement, you know, after you've spent the funds. Typically, these grants, they like you to apply for them, enter into a contract, and then you start the work. So to ask for it after the fact, it's really going to just depend on the funding source.
Well, I guess my view on that is that this is a $3 million phase 1, phase 2, right? 1.2 plus the 1.8. We have the 1.2 sort of paid for as long as we begin our construction within the deadline. And so there is a significant leverage that is taking place in phase 1 and phase 2 if we can get those, you know, if we can meet that 20, whatever deadline it ends up being, because I think we're going to need an extension. We like to leverage these funds. We successfully did leverage these funds. We don't want to lose them. I think option 2 makes the most sense. But I'm curious, of course, what the public has to say and what our, you know, friends on staff and consultants have to say. And apparently, 2 staff members want to say something about it.
Go ahead. I was just going to have Renee clarify, where does the $1.8 million come from? What does it compete with? What are we not going to do over the next couple of years?
So I've mentioned kind of throughout my presentation that the most readily available funds would be street maintenance funds. So that means we're not doing $1.8 million over the time it takes to finish out the phase 1 and phase 2 work on streets. So to give you a comparable, we just did some street maintenance work on Clovis Avenue between Alluvial and Meade. 2 lanes each direction. You got a median island there. That cost approximately $20,000. So you take that, we need $1.8 million. You've got 3 of those projects that you're not doing.
What's our annual street maintenance budget, do you know? Off the top of your head, anybody?
I want to say like 12 million, but I could be wrong.
I don't know off the top of my head. That may be on the line. He may be able to answer that.
I think it's about $12 to $14 million in total in the streets fund that we do, you know, we have budgeted. That's not all street maintenance money. That's a combination of grants, Measure C, local street taxes. But yeah, if Thad's online, he could go into more detail if you're interested.
Thank you.
It doesn't involve any parks trails funds? Or is that budget, part of the budget so limited that it wouldn't help at all? Because you keep saying it's street maintenance, but it's really a pedestrian bridge, so.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. But what we would have to utilize is we've got a lot of discretion with those dollars.
Yeah.
And so we could earmark those dollars to be shifted to pay for this design. We've got that discretion with those types of funds.
And so I'm asking, additionally, is parks and trails totally out of it as well? That, whatever that budget item line is, I don't know how much and how big that.
Well, the only real source we have for that is the developer fees, and this is not programmed in that program. So I think we can spend it on trail activities like that, but something this big is not contemplated in that fee program.
Wait, one more point, sorry. Maybe we should, as they start to develop out in the northeast, since this bridge crossing would assist them, it might make sense to incorporate that into a development fee for any development that should have to take place out there. And I know they're kind of chomping at the bit to get out there. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I just had one, and it's somewhat related to John's question. I guess to the extent, if the council was to choose option 2 tonight, you're ultimately going to have to make a budget decision at some point in the near future, presumably for the 1.8 million. But you're not necessarily committing yourselves to that course of action because the contract, we're here tonight because the contract with Biggs Cardosa gives the city the flexibility to terminate. Now, you could proceed, finish phase 1, terminate at that point if you decide, you know what, we don't want to continue forward. So you wouldn't, even though you may have budgeted the 1.8 million, at that point you're finished with phase 1, but you don't proceed with phase 2, or you just go all the way forward with phase 2. So even though you may direct staff at this point to proceed with the project, we still could be back to council at some point at the completion of phase 1 and say, okay, we're a year, 18 months now. Remember the conversation we had in 2022? Well, things have gotten worse, or things have gotten better, and we want to proceed. So we would still have the flexibility under the current contract to come to you after phase 1.
And we'd only be in $1.2 million. Because if the options are still the same,
you would, I think,
because some work would have to be done, and I'm sure it's not going to be free. Therefore, we could be spending some of that $1.2 million, and therefore, we'll be in to whatever yeah.
And Renee can summarize that from option 1.
Yeah, so under option 1, if we decided to continue, and then we finished the phase 1 work and we brought it back to council and the direction was, let's stop it, we're looking at about $605,000 plus staff time. So we would have to pay back any Cmac funds that we've received because we didn't move to the phase 2 work. To date, we've received $260,000. It would just depend on whatever we claimed between now and the completion of the phase 1.
And option 1 would not foreclose us from going into phase 2 eventually. It's just, we're just saying, at least at this point, we're just going to do phase 1.
Correct.
Because it sounds like these options, we're making some decision tonight. It's focused on terminating the contract immediately. We're in 30 days. And that's really kind of the only question that is of some significance that needs to be decided. That does not foreclose, if we choose not to terminate the contract, in 30 days, then all of our options still remain on the table going forward. And I think that's your point, Scott, is that we can finish phase 1, take another look at what the status is of all of the discussion points that we've had tonight, and then either say, okay, well, that's enough, and we're only going to be paying back $650,000 to Cmac instead of 100 or 1.2 million. Or we can say, hey, you know what, things are looking better, we're gonna continue to move forward with phase 2 to get this thing, shelf-ready, because we're optimistic for whatever reason. Right? We good? Okay.
Was that?
Go ahead.
So with option 1, we're going to have community meetings and meeting with stakeholders. And I guess the big concern I have here is someone listens to this conversation that we had, like the conversation we had last week. And they come to a meeting, we have this conversation, and they say, if you guys can't afford to hire cops, we're going to spend $3 million that we're probably going to have to give back to have this conversation. And I just see it as, you know, it just causes too much angst. That, to me, option 3 is the way to go. You cut our losses, and we come back later if there's a new Buy Back Better program. Buy Back Better. If in the, whatever happens in 2022, maybe things will change. But I just think it's fiscally irresponsible for us to risk $3 million when we're having a committee put together to discuss funding for the police department at the same time.
It do brings up a good point, because at the end of the day, if we can't find the money, the general fund will have to be used somehow to back some of that debt.
But I think, you know, I understand the optics that you're describing, and I think that we are probably all familiar with how the budgets work in government, and that, you know, they're kind of like two separate pots. But to Jose's point, you know, if we should end up getting ourselves into debt and we can't make that debt out of the normal types of funds that are available in kind of the street pot, then yeah, the general fund could potentially be used in order to make that payment back. The CIP projects, you know, the capital improvement projects, how they end up, you know, getting funded could sometimes maybe be a mixture of both, but they're generally not all out of the general fund. Anyway, but I understand your point. The optics are problematic, and so for that reason, I think it's.
Can I say one word? Sure. You know, we, with our firehouse in Loma Vista, we borrowed money from enterprise funds for, I think it was a lawsuit that we got money from, and Jay's gone now. Is there money in the enterprise fund that we have put away, that we've received in lawsuits, that could potentially cover this, that we could, if let's say we ended up on the, you know, we had to make up $11 million. Let's just say after we got everybody's money, we're still into this for 11. Is there 11 million in money we've gotten in lawsuits that we could pay ourselves back with? Or have we kind of leveraged most of that money?
John?
I'll take a wing at it if you give me a caveat that I'm not the finance director. There are monies that could be loaned.
Right.
That would have to be repaid. But exact an amount, when you said 11, I don't think we have 11 in there. The total was 19, and we've committed 8 point something for the firehouse. So we'd have to take a look at it. But the big thing there is that it would be a loan. Right.
We'd have to pay it back. I mean, we'd pay it back to ourselves. And then we would not have, I think the optics would be much better and would be much cleaner, because we're kind of rolling our own here. But, I don't know.
When we talk about optics, we have 4 designs, and one's the basic Caltrans design, and then 2 beautiful designs, 3, and the 4th being the most beautiful in my eyes. And so when we go to other sources, it's going to be a vanity thing. Yeah, we want the signature bridge, that gateway to the Sierra, and it's going to look beautiful. And with either the 3 arches or the cable version, they look beautiful, especially in front of the majestic Sierra, Nevada. But there'll be optics, and the optics is going to be negative because we're going to be seen as, none of those exist in Central California. I haven't seen one. I don't want the Caltrans one, but to go out being beggars for vanity.
Yeah, McFarland has a pretty cool, over McFarland. They have their kids running, like the movie McFarland USA.
Yeah, but I think that's more cosmetic. That's just sheet metal.
You could potentially put lipstick on a pig.
Okay, and that's what they did.
And do that, but then we're cheapening it, so.
Yeah.
And we're still spending over $10 million.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be, the optics on that one would be less than the signature one. So we just got to know going in that those will be what the naysayers say, that here you are, can't afford cops, you're not comfortable with just the ordinary stuff that every other city uses. You want to be special like you always want to be, and you can't afford it. So beer budget with a champagne taste.
But remember, Dr. Buchanan, we're too poor to build cheap, right? So I don't think we should apologize for having a big vision. That's why Clovis is Clovis. Our R&T park was a crazy idea 20 years ago. Like, what are you doing? What are you, that could be houses, that could be something else, and it turns to be a super good idea. So I don't think we should apologize for big, special visions. I don't want an ordinary vision. That seems weird. So that doesn't make any sense. So I think what I hear is, this is our vision, and this is our vision. And we need to get people from this side to this side. Is the option one planning, does that include any other getting people from this side to this side planning beside the bridge? It's really just the bridge. Okay, I mean, we don't get any other, like, assets out of that, like how you might make it safer or a different way or anything like that.
Under option one, we do complete out the trail, because right now the trail stops at Owens Mountain Parkway, so
that's a positive.
Yeah, so the positive is you would continue heading south along the preferred alignment and then over 168. But the option one doesn't make any changes right now to Temperance Avenue or any of the pathways that pedestrians and bicyclists currently use to get both north and south of 168 along Temperance.
So how does that work occur? Does our current consultants have that capacity for more money, of course, or how do we not miss the original intent, which is to get people from there to there? Because this bridge is 10 years away, let's say. So how do we fulfill that original promise to get people from there to there safely?
So right now there is a pathway for pedestrians and bicyclists. It's using Temperance Avenue. It's using the sidewalks and the bike lane.
And going under the freeway.
But you're going under the freeway, so shy of having a bridge, that is your option right now, unless you just avoided Temperance altogether and, went down Alluvial and then south on Alluvial to, Herndon or wherever you're going, and then it's just, we're creatures of taking the path of least resistance in some cases.
Now, and I think it's possible to do two things at once. I think that I don't worry that, great cities invest in two things at once. Great cities can have money for police and they can make great buildings. I don't think people are going to do that kind of trade-off exactly. I don't know. We either have a big vision or we don't. I think that's it. If we're in it for a big vision, then we better have it, and we better at least finish phase one, reevaluate and see if we can do it for phase two. If we can't, we tried, and then we let a council in a decade do it. But I think stopping now seems like we're saying we just spent $260,000 of money that we have to give back, and we didn't get anything for it. Not your fault, our fault. So I think that's what I'm hearing.
Well, I think that's the whole idea. I'm ready for the public
Let's
input.
hear the consultants.
Anybody, are we ready for the public? I'll open up to the public here present at our chambers. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item?
I should, Maha Sharon is Big Scarlet's associate. We are the designers. I gotta admit that I'm really impressed with all the know-hows and the amount of thought that you're giving to this project. I just came out of type selection meeting for another cable state bridge in the city of Santa Rosa, and we got it approved, and we're going to get into final design. It's similar to this project, almost the same amount of number of dollars, and they have actually been able to secure the funding for design as well as the construction. So that's a good project that we're working on. For this project, I would say, for option one, I think that was one of the questions. Option one is the Caltrans Bridge. A Caltrans Bridge doesn't need to be ugly to begin with. It can also be not necessarily a signature, but a significant structure with things that you can actually add to it. It's at the lower cost, obviously, but it's not at $7 million that you anticipated originally for this project. So option one can be improved in the looks to make you proud of your structure. So you could still consider that structure as one of your options. The other options are obviously more signature type, and signature is not just for beauty. It has its own uses. You don't have a column in the middle. You're not restricted in the future development on the freeway. So it has its own uses for the future expansion of the area. So it's not money that's just thrown because of the vanity. I wouldn't call it that, because we use that type of structure for particular uses. So anyway, I don't know what I can add to it. I'm here to answer questions if you may have, and see if I can answer it for you.
Any questions? Bob?
So tell me about what you know about the Redding Bridge that is kind of a bridge to nowhere over Sacramento.
Sundial Bridge?
Yeah. Do you know the cost of that, how that was received, what benefit, if any, it brought to the community?
Well, that structure was one of a kind. It was expensive at the time that it was designed, and it basically made that city a place of visit. Visitors go to see that bridge. I went there and I was impressed myself. So it makes your city, or made that city a place to go and see it for visitors, and it becomes an icon of the city. You could think of this bridge as that as well. But it was an expensive structure. I think at the time it was, Sean, I don't remember. I think it was like over $25 million or something like that.
It extends over the Sacramento River, is that right? Or
I think so. It goes over the river. I'm not sure what the name of the river is.
Okay.
It's American.
The Sundial Bridge. It has like a glass deck, and it's beautiful.
More for my curiosity, why the two arches versus the three? I didn't understand that. Instead of just having one arch in the middle, I see the two and the three, and what's the difference in the significance? I know that it's...
So the two arches, the main arch is the same. It goes over the 168. Yeah. The other arch goes over one of the roads, and the arch on the left goes over the other. It's more of a symmetry, whether you want a symmetrical shape or you want two arches. They're both nice looking. The arch on the left, which replaces the concrete bridge, it basically eliminates the support. It makes the supports more different from each other. The cost isn't really, I don't think it's that much different. I can see from here. But it's just, what's your preference for the...
I think maybe that's not what I didn't look as far as you told me to.
Okay.
Where the actual end looks different underneath, but okay.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I just didn't know why it was offered, because it just seemed like it was option two seemed like a incomplete bridge.
You want more, the symmetry is, sometimes symmetry is something that people don't like anymore, and they, whereas a three arches is more symmetrical.
Dissonance. No, I like 3 and 4. I think I prefer 4 more than the cable stayed bridge. It's beautiful.
It's hard to compete with cable stayed bridges when it comes to looks.
And I agree with you that because there's just those main columns are the only things that are on the freeway. For public safety, it's actually a better design for those driving on the freeway itself. And it could be we were talking about tourism the other day. It could be a reason why people come to Clovis, especially if we feature it or it's featured in the organized runs, organized cycling events, where people then come to see it and be part of it. So there's, it could be promoted as an attraction to our city.
Yes.
Do you see difficulty in us building it by 2027? Is it just bridges just aren't being built? You're not seeing, or is it something in which it's still there?
Well, I tell you, bridge projects takes a long time to actually develop, and extending the timing from Cmac, I'm with Renee. I think you can ask for it, and you probably will get it. If you ask me, you would get it, because they're not going to tell you, you spend all this money, now we're not going to extend it, and you have developed it so far, we can give you another year or two. But that's something that I think she has more experience with, and she can explain that more. But my gut feeling is you can extend that timing.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions over to Lynn.
Just, would you be open to the contract discussions as we talked about, like just sort of, whatever we decide, doing some amount of work and then just like reevaluating as opposed to canceling the contract altogether? Is your organization comfortable with that?
I put it this way, I'll be heartbroken if I don't. Sean and I, we are here tonight. This project is close to our heart. So whatever your decisions are, we'll comply with. As far as we going along with the extension of the contract, I'm all on board.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for your comment.
Well, I need to also ask you, how much was COVID in the delay on your end in doing the work?
It did not impact our work at all. We were up and going the week that it hit us. A lot of us were working remote anyway, so it was not, it did not delay us.
And so should we decide to move forward, you don't foresee internally any delays in providing the product to?
Not at all, because, Sean and his group were dedicated to the project, so there's no impact on us working on the project. We have staff.
And do you foresee a decrease in pricing at all?
Yeah, that's a good question. It came up, and I wanted to jump and answer the question. Again, the type selection meeting that we had this morning, it was a cable-stayed bridge with one pylon on one side, and the whole deck isn't concrete. It's all steel structure. So when originally we were putting costs to the bridge, we were looking at the cost of the bridge in October, and it was spiking at that time. And most recently, we looked at the cost, and it went down. The steel cost went down a little bit. So it's hard to tell with the steel costs how they're going to behave, but it's hard to tell. But it goes up and down. It's not just up.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
I think our questions are up. Anyone else wishing to comment on this item from the public? Anyone on the web?
No.
Okay, guys. Moment of truth. What is our pleasure? Because.
Well, I think that the way I'm reading the staff report is that it's a receive and file item related to the, what option to go with. I think that we've had some pretty good conversation about which options are available, and the only real question that I see that is going to require some action is considering the approval of terminating the Pedestrian Bridge design contract with Biggs Cardoza Associates. So, in light of that, I'm going to move that we continue the contract with Biggs Cardoza Associates.
I'll second that, and then maybe ask staff to continue to work and, refine the options, and I think Scott's idea about let's do option one, and then let's reevaluate, and then let's, sorry, but I'll second that motion.
But option one could cost us $3 million, correct? Is that the number?
No.
1.2, then, what is it?
So option one, we've spent currently $360,000. We anticipate it'll be another $245,000 plus staff time to finish phase one. So you're looking at over $600,000. The way I understand the recommendation right now before you is that we would not currently terminate the contract. We would continue to work with Biggs Cardoza to complete the phase one work. At that point, we come back to council, present what we have found, and then we could make a decision to either terminate or move forward with phase two.
Yeah, that would be my request, is that after phase one, come back and visit us.
Bob, is it your thought that would give us that opportunity to meet with federal officials to ask about an extension? Because to me, that kind of goes hand in hand here, and we don't have a federal representative right now.
Detail.
What's that?
Detail.
I think it gives us many options. I mean, that's just one. I mean, we'd be looking for all kinds of funding sources in the meantime, and options then suggested revisiting contracts. So there's all kinds of things we can be doing in the meantime, knowing that we're going to spend a little bit more money, and at the end of phase one, our cost at that point is $600,000 versus the $360,000 that it is today, and I think we're in a better place at the phase one than we are today, because today we really have nothing. And then at the end of phase one, we'll be able to decide whether we want to go to phase two and have a shovel-ready project and we can spend the $3 million that it takes to get there. And I don't think this is basically kicking the can down the road. This is let's see what everything that's going on in the world, especially COVID and the rest. It's hard to make decisions right now when the supply chain's all screwed up. The pandemic apparently is still raging, and people won't help because they're too busy hiding. So let's see what happens in a few months, and we evaluate. It will cost us some more money if we have to give it back. That's the proposition.
But the Cmac money would cover all of option one if we proceeded to option two and started construction by 27 or a date to be extended. So option one will only cost us anything if we get to the end of one and say we can't do anything.
I was going to actually say what Jose said about kicking the can down the road, but we're doing it for a good reason. I can get behind this because this is a worthy project. And if we can, at the very least, get to a point where we know the numbers are better, we know what our chances of getting an extension past 2027 are, then we have a little bit of potential to be able to get a funding source for at least part of this. And then we can make a decision on what we're going to do. So I can get behind it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I just wanted clarity because options were never in the motion but just discussed. So pretty much we're doing option one. I just want to understand that
I think that's
clearly.
fair. I think that's fair. We're going to, but we're not doing just option one, right? That says we're going to finish phase one and then that's it, right? So we've got a year now of time for staff to work on some of the issues that we've discussed. come back, phase one will be completed, and maybe we'll have a better, crystal ball.
Vision, at least,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe the fog's cleared.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted, so with that clarity, yes, I'm an aye.
Okay, so it's 5-0, and you have direction. I think that's, and I don't think it's kicking the can down the road, because we just need we need to get up above the fog and see what's out there. Right. Okay. City manager comments, COVID-19 update.
Oh, boy. Andy, get over the slides for me. Couple of city manager comments. Last week, I had reported that we would have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission on February 22nd, which is the third meeting in February. With the numbers that we're seeing right now and the social distancing we're looking at, I'm going to push that joint meeting out to the third meeting in March, which I believe is the March 21st or 22nd meeting. Also, last week, I had provided you guys an update with on the Citizens Advisory Committee. Our first meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday, January 26th. We'll get you guys a copy of the agenda and the packet that we're going to send to them. We plan to send that out probably either Friday or Monday. We're still working on some details.
Where are you meeting?
We actually met today on site at CHSU and have found incredible facilities that's going to facilitate those members that want to participate virtually. And we're going to do we have a meeting on the details tomorrow. We're going to do a dry run at that location on Thursday, and we should be in position to go on next Wednesday.
Excellent.
So, and in my email, I had invited you to attend the first meeting to be able to comment to the committee. In addition to that, Andy Chad and I met with Chris Casado and Greg Newman to kind of set the stage for where we're headed.
Oh, I believe we've done enough damage. Just kidding. I will be out of town potentially next Wednesday, so I don't know that I would come. I wouldn't comment anyway, but I will not be there next Wednesday.
And just so you know, you do have the opportunity to call in or participate.
I might listen that way, but yeah, okay.
Next slide, please. As far as the COVID update goes, the confirmed cases and the confirmed deaths in Fresno County, as I reported last week, we've seen a pretty significant uptick in cases over the holidays. For Fresno County, you can see the cases on the left and the deaths on the right. As you can see, just like the state and the nation, cases are up, but the trend is positive for both cases and deaths. Next slide, please. The Clovis zip code cases. Please recall that this is more than just the city of Clovis because it includes the 93619. You can see the jump in cases in December compared to November. And as you know, the data for January is only through the 14th, which was last Friday, and will continue to grow as we report out. Fresno County hospitalization, the confirmed hospitalized in blue and the confirmed ICU in red. Similar trends to the prior charts, if not increased. Hospitalization rates are way up in December and January, and the ICU confirmed are beginning an uptick. You see the bottom right-hand corner. Vaccinated versus unvaccinated cases in Fresno County, with the unvaccinated being in red and the vaccinated being in blue. The unvaccinated people are 3.8 times more likely to get COVID than fully vaccinated people. But that's a pretty significant jump since September. Moving on to vaccinated versus unvaccinated deaths in Fresno County, with the unvaccinated being in red and the vaccinated being in blue. The unvaccinated people are 20.8 times more likely to die than fully vaccinated people. And finally, as most of you are likely aware, the orders for free at-home COVID tests began today. You can't read the fine print, but every home in the U.S. is now eligible to order 4 at-home tests shipped by the end of January. The image that you see here is one Chad McCollum posted on the city website to get the information out. And that concludes my comments, and we're available for questions.
Any questions for John? Thank you. Move on to council comments. Bob? Ron?
Yeah, I wanted to report a Measure C meeting. I think it's important that the rest of the council and the public start to understand and hear what is going on as a representative from the city, and even though Madam Chair of the committee is also a council member here, but she represents the entire county. And so, overall, when the meeting gets going, it's moving. But I think with the comments and the recent letter in challenging and recommendations that have not been fully discussed by the committee is something in which I think the city needs to be aware of, and we need to start to get involved and get our voices heard. And I wanted to really put this out so that way you understand. There is a group, Leadership Council, League of Women Voters, is it Roots of Resistance, Faith in the Family, and Building Healthy Communities, and several others. And so they're starting to put ideas in and giving comments regarding the goals of Measure C. And so one of the big ones is there needs to be more public outreach. And if there isn't, then it would undermine stated equity goals included in the draft goals and objectives. And so that has been a big, I guess, slowdown of the process. It potentially can slow down the timeline for what we need to do. And so there's just wanting more and more outreach, potentially requiring certain quotas, meaning certain numbers before anything can move forward. And so just wanted to let people know of that. And then with regards to the goals and objectives, what is inserted, I think, kind of, my comment is it strays from transportation in that it focuses on especially low-income households across urban and rural communities. So in other words, everything has to go there. And so I worry because, roads are for everyone, regardless of, regardless of the car you drive or how much you make, everybody goes on the roads. And so it's urging staff, consultants, the committee to intentionally and explicitly advance environmental, racial, economic, and climate justice in Fresno County. So using this to do that. Stuff it's saying like the Community and Neighborhood Streets and Roads Program, which we are a part of and we contribute quite a bit to it, must only fund complete streets projects in existing communities and neighborhoods and prioritize resources for projects in disadvantaged neighborhoods in each city and disadvantaged unincorporated communities. And so I think every time I hear those languages, people never see Clovis as a disadvantage. And so what does that mean to the overall budget? I know we haven't discussed it, but I just want us to be aware of that. And it says that in almost every item brought forward, in existing cities and disadvantaged unincorporated communities. And so existing underserved communities. So for example, of a standalone transportation program, it needs to prioritize disadvantaged and unincorporated communities. When it talks, the new program, they are suggesting the new program designed to address the deleterious impact that highway construction has had on neighborhoods, including dividing communities and contributing pollution in overburdened areas. And so those are some of the comments. And the last one I wanted to read is, we also recommend elimination of programs that would perpetuate or exacerbate inequality and health disparities, including programs that support highway expansions, highway interchange expansions, or road expansions that facilitate increased truck traffic and pollution in our already burdened communities. And so it's pretty strong, and I think that not many have commented, but I think we need to start to put the meeting notices on our website, and start to put that so that way our constituencies can start to get engaged. I say that only because what has not been presented, and I think I will ask for, is an actual accounting of who has contributed the most, meaning Fresno Clovis, and how much those contributions have been returned to our local cities, but also how much it has helped the entire community in transportation programs. And if this is where it goes, how much that would change, you know, those allocations moving forward. And I think it's very important that we, you know, get that cleared up early on so that way we know as a council and also as a community, you know, how we want to answer and or present ways to continue a renewal of this transportation tax. So I wanted to put that out there. I think we also will need to, I will put Chad, you in contact with sort of Bruce Batty in trying to get more input from our citizens using their links, I know they came out and did it, but I think we need to be proactive and do it now. So that way, voices from those who are engaged in transportation, at least communities here, and our residents can really put their input in it. Because I think if the outreach, the points come out that support some of this, they're going to use that as, see, the public wants it. But if the outreach comes out and doesn't support what is stated here, then that is just community input, you know. And so it was never clear. I know that our Madam Chair tried to address it as it will be a guide, but not something that ties all of us down to where we would go first. And so I wanted to put that out there, and just so that we are informed and we continue to be engaged. And it's open to the public, so we can all listen to the meetings. That's all I have.
Sure. Two things. One, this kind of dovetails in with what Ron just said. The Air Board has received some fairly substantial funding from EPA.
Can it pay for bridges?
No.
Oh, too bad.
But there is part of that, and there was an Assembly Bill 218, which identified 5 disadvantaged communities throughout California. Malaga-Calwa is one. There's one in Shafter, one in Oregon, and also Stockton. And there's a lot of money being pumped in to the environmental justice portion of this, and doing walkways, pathways to make more green space. I reached out directly to State Center for the 2 campuses that they are building in that area because they could partner with other people. So it's not like we don't listen to the equity, justice, you know, folks, you know, those areas, those 5 communities have higher air pollution, partially because of highways and things like that, and there's money being thrown to that. Additionally, there's a program called Tune In, Tune Up, where people who are at a certain economic level, and I don't know what it is, I think it's under $25,000. If they have a car that will not pass smog, this program, you bring your car in, they'll test it. If it doesn't pass smog, they'll give you a voucher to go to a repair facility that will hopefully be able to get this car back on the road, or currently registered. Because I know that I have stopped many people who had expired registrations. They just said, my car won't smog, and it's the only car I have. How am I getting to work? So I reached out today to the mayors of 5 or 6 Fresno County cities to let them know about this. And because the money's there, it's a great program, and I would like to see us either do one ourselves. We did one here about 2-3 years ago, and it was because they're you know, the common, we don't have poor folks in Clovis. I beg to differ. And there are a lot of people struggling, and they're struggling to get to work and take their kids to school. And maybe if we can host something, or maybe even work in conjunction with Fresno and do something at a rec center, or maybe at Sunnyside swap meet or something like that. We could co-host something. And I did send the council president an email also telling him about it. There's going to be, as cap and trade continues, it appears it's going to continue to increase, more money's coming to the San Joaquin Valley to combat these things, and we just need to be there to get it out there. And I literally send emails when I'm on the dais to people saying, you need to look at the agenda. This might be yours. And so, there's 3 offices. You have one up in Modesto, one in Bakersfield, and ours. We simulcast our meetings, and usually the only people we get to come in and talk are industry people like agriculture and the environmental justice people. And we never do enough for some, and we do too much for the others. So but I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's all I have. Yeah.
Just thank you, Vaughn, for those comments that on Measure C. It is super important that we engage. Otherwise, the story, I think you were reading from the letter from the Leadership Council and others, which is, of course, their voice matters, but right now it's the only voice in the room. So I think if the City of Clovis is interested in how this turns out, I haven't heard a single word from the City of Clovis staff on any of those meetings. We've got to weigh, like the work group, we've got to weigh in, because otherwise we have a chance to shape TOD or active transportation or bridge completion, or I don't know, but I think please weigh in, because it really does, the working group is really important. And, you know, you could list it on the executive meeting, but Vaughn does a really good job of that. So thank you for your comments. We'll get it. It's been hard, but we'll get it. I hope.
Well, I don't think I have much to say. I think it's been plenty. Only that kudos to Clovis Police for quickly solving that homicide we had at Fowler and Shaw, involving the store clerk and the suspect that shot, and eventually she died from her injuries. Well, it was the first of the year, but we've had a series of we had a few domestic violence last year. So of the five homicides we had last year, 3 of them were domestic violence. And this is the first homicide we've had this year, and it too was domestic violence. Apparently, some dispute that, but all reports say it was domestic violence involved. But you know, that's one thing about of the 5 homicides, which is an increase. We've never had 5 homicides in 1 year, and that was last, huh? Well, not that often. Okay. Anyway, but if you study what's going on, domestic violence seems to be an issue when the majority are because of that. Also, some of our visitors here get into trouble with other visitors, and it leads to street fights, which end up also in homicide. So, but of the 5 homicides we had last year, every single one of them was resolved by the PD, and people are being held accountable. So that's good. And so now we have the first of the year, and too early, obviously, but once again, Clovis PD has solved that one. And that's all I got, and we will now be adjourned. I see cake back there. Who's